Welcome to another episode of Sounds Reasonable. I'm your host, Dr. Brad, and I am joined in the production of our weekly show by Tim, Tracy, and Abby. We're all members of the Free Thought community, and our Sounds Reasonable website can be found on Facebook. Do you experience frequent irrational thoughts, a pervasive belief in a divine skydad, an insatiable urge to read horoscopes, perform spells, speak in tongues, or pray? Fortunately, you're now listening to the cure for these ailments. Sounds Reasonable. This show is dedicated to bringing you, the listener, the latest news in free thought, science, logic and reason, and politics and religion. And of course, we encourage you to share your thoughts with us after every episode by posting comments and asking questions on our Facebook page. What is free thought? What does it mean to be a free thinker? The dictionary definition is a person who forms opinions about religion based on reason, independent of tradition, authority, or established belief. Here's Christopher Hitchens' working definition. Our belief is not a belief. Our principles are not a faith. We do not rely solely upon science and reason because these are necessary rather than sufficient factors, but we distrust anything that contradicts science or outrages reason. We may differ on many things, but what we respect is free inquiry, open-mindedness, and the pursuit of ideas for their own sake. We will now move on to our science news segment, and remember that the scientific mind is one that allows its perceptions of reality to be constrained by good evidence and good argument. Sleep, some people's favorite pastime, is required of all of us.
20 hours.
The two main functions of sleep are to consolidate memories and cleanse the brain of neurotoxins. Of course, physical rest is also important, and those that have done athletic training know that muscle is primarily built during sleep. But mentally, the first two reasons are the most important. Like everything else in biology, sleep behavior comes down to genetics. Thus, when the Johnson family, and I'll be talking about the Johnson family quite a bit, they're a Mormon family in Utah. Thus, when the Johnson family was identified as having several family members who were able to function normally with 5 hours of sleep a night, this gave molecular biologists the opportunity to identify a gene or genes that are involved in regulating sleep. Now, 3 genes have been identified thus far that are involved in this sleep regulation. The first to be discovered was a gene known as DEC2. Now, DEC2 is a negative component of the circadian clock. And again, for our listeners, those of you that aren't quite sure what their circadian clock is, this is basically an internal 24-hour clock that dictates your awake-sleep cycles. And all organisms that are dependent upon light and or dark have circadian clocks. So DEC2 belongs to a basic helix loop helix protein family in which members can dimerize with each other and can affect gene transcription by binding to specific DNA sequences. Now, that was easy for me to say, right? So basically what this protein does, it recognizes specific sequences within DNA and allows for the turning on and off of genes. And I'll discuss this a little bit more here in just a moment. Now, a point mutation in this gene was identified in a small family with 2 affected individuals. And the subjects carrying this mutation had lifelong shorter daily sleep times, about 6.25 hours than normal individuals. So on average, about a little more than 8. Now, when transgenic mice were constructed containing the same mutation in the mouse equivalent gene, the same sleep phenotype was observed. And so that's direct experimental evidence that this gene does indeed regulate sleep. So you simply modified the mouse gene equivalent to the human gene, and voila, you get mice that now do not require the same amount of sleep that their non or that their wild type siblings do. So Tim, if I could have the first figure, please. Okay, so this figure in panel A shows a pedigree of the family that we're discussing. Squares represent males, circles represent females. If there's a line through any of those, that means that that individual is now deceased. You'll note that individual 44990 so has a black circle there. So that indicates that that individual has the mutant form of the gene. And then similarly, you'll note that 47690 also does. Okay. So that just simply shows the pattern of inheritance. So this would be very typical of a recessive type of inheritance pattern. Okay, and then in panel B, and let's see, there we go. Yeah, I'm gonna move, I gotta move my panel over so I can see what's going on there. Okay, so in panel B, we've got the schematic arrangement of the gene itself, and there are two regions that I just want to briefly point out. So the region that is labeled with just the black rectangle, so it's labeled BHLH, that's the basic helix loop helix region, and again, that's just a region that allows this protein to effectively bind to DNA. And then on the far right portion, there's this proline or P-rich region. So the amino acid proline is very prominent in this region. And if you look at the various other animals being compared to the human gene, you'll note that there's a proline that is highly conserved. It's highlighted in gray there. Okay. And so that's where a mutation, if it occurs, causes the natural short sleep phenotype that we've been discussing. Now, the way in which this particular gene works is that it modifies chromatin. Now, again, that's another fancy way of saying that it is a general regulator of gene expression. Okay, so I'm not going to go into all the details of how it regulates gene expression here. Just realize that that's its function. Okay, so this particular gene has the potential to affect multiple genes, multiple other genes. So let's just put it that way. Okay, Tim. So if we could return. Now, further studies have identified other families that have the short sleep phenotype. One of the genes identified is the beta-1 adrenergic receptor. Noradrenergic signaling in the central nervous system has long been known to regulate sleep. These individuals, bars within the brain appear to mediate the rapid eye movement. Okay, so again, if you do not enter a deep enough sleep to have REM sleep, you're not getting effective, you're not going to have an effective night's sleep. And also alert waking. Okay, so note that it's involved in two key aspects of sleep, both during sleep and then your ability to or alertly awake. Now, clinically, beta blockers are widely used and can be associated with falling asleep and staying asleep, possibly due to decreased release of melatonin. But a rare mutation in this particular gene was found in humans with natural short sleep. So once again, the function of this gene was confirmed by engineering mice to have the identical mutation, resulting in the short sleep phenotype. Now, the protein itself is a G protein coupled receptor. And again, we're not going to worry about how G proteins work, how all of that fits together. Just realize that this protein is a receptor for these particular sleep hormones, shall we say. Now, again, without going into all the details, this is a common cellular signaling pathway. And figure 2 shows the pedigree for this family.
See it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So we're there.
Right.
Yep. Okay. So starting at the top, we have a carrier individual. Okay. So this is going to be a recessive inheritance pattern again that we're looking at. Okay. And again, remember that a line through an individual indicates that they're now deceased. But note that we've got a large number of individuals that are showing up here with the trait. Okay, and you'll note that they're labeled underneath them this BAL. Okay, so BAL indicates the amino acid that has been changed as a result of the mutation. And so if we look down at panel B, okay, again, now we're comparing the human wild type gene to a number of other animals. And you'll note that at position 187, we have that A boxed in. So that's the amino acid alanine, or ALA. And you'll note that the individuals that are normal in the pedigree have alanine there. Okay, so again, looking back at panel A. Now, when we have the mutation, we change this A to a V. Okay, so we change the amino acid alanine to the amino acid valine, and that is sufficient to cause the natural short sleep phenotype. Okay, that'll do it for that, Tim. Thank you. Now, a third gene has also been identified that directly affects natural short sleep. A neuropeptide S receptor reduces sleep duration with preservation of memory consolidation. So remember, those are the two things that happen during sleep, right? So we remove neurotoxins and we consolidate memory. Now, once again, we have a missense mutation in a G protein coupled receptor. Now, the neuropeptide S has been reported to modulate arousal and sleep behaviors. Administration of NPS in mice increases wakefulness and hyperactivity. So it's clear that this neuropeptide does directly affect these physiological patterns. Okay, so if you can just directly administer the hormone, you affect those. Now, once again, when mice are engineered to have the same mutation as is found in humans, the natural short sleep phenotype is generated. Okay, and we get, I'm not going to worry about showing this figure, Tim, because we get a very similar inheritance pattern, and we've already seen what happens when we generate a particular mutation. Okay, so it's basically the same story, just different gene. So to summarize, sleep is clearly regulated by specific genes. There are almost certainly going to be many more that will be identified in the future. And the hope, of course, is to eliminate sleep disorders by understanding these pathways. So, guys, what are your thoughts on today's science news? What do you think?
That's interesting how another example how just a point mutation, just one amino acid change drastically changes the function or causes a functional change in a protein. It's how simple, how easy sometimes it can be to cause a change.
I agree, and it's just you know, I wonder if there is you know, some selection pressure for against that particular mutation, because it does seem valuable to be able to survive on less sleep, but does that have long-term side effects that we're unaware of?
Not according to everything I read about this family. They have been perfectly normal in every respect, and in fact, the phenotype is actually associated with higher productivity. So these individuals tend to be very highly motivated, go above and beyond, shall we say, what is typically expected. So rather amazing. I've oftentimes wondered if I don't have that, because I don't seem to require as much sleep. I mean, I really don't. I'm typically wide awake early, and I can go to bed at 1 and I'm still up at 6. That doesn't seem to matter much. So.
Well, I do that too, but I don't think I function quite as well because I get tired. I'm tired. I'm so tired.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a napper, but I definitely want 8 hours of sleep a night. So
I don't
know, but I mean, there obviously is some genetic changes that influence how much sleep each individual needs or family needs, because there is obvious differences too. I mean, that seems like quite an extreme example, because 5 hours of sleep is not very much, and to be perfectly able to function and even be highly productive. But I think there's a lot of people that, take multiple naps and things a day and still, feel tired or don't feel rested or are not as productive.
Sure.
Yeah, I usually have first nap, second nap. And then I also sleep about 10 hours a night. So I don't know.
It'd be interesting to see, because I think it's well known that as you get older, you tend to get less sleep, or maybe seem to require that
Right, but there I would attribute it more to a lower level of physical activity.
Right.
That seems to go hand in hand, because
makes sense.
when I work out, the first thing I like to do is come home and take about a 30-minute nap right after workout. So
yeah.
So
yeah, it's really interesting.
I'm tired right now. So I'm tired talking about this.
Just talking about it.
Just talking about it's making me think of sleep and wanting to sleep.
I'm pretty refreshed at the moment. That's because I woke up and then went right back to sleep after eating all those cinnamon rolls. All of them.
Had any of you ever heard of this before? Natural short sleep. I'd never heard of it before, and I ran across this article and said, "Man, this is."
It is interesting. It is interesting.
So I would have, I would have thought it would have been deleterious is the first thing I would have thought, but no, it's the exact opposite.
Yeah, I was thinking so too. I mean, obviously you can see short-term advantages of being able to function, but it seems like there would be long-term negative
give and take
effects. And so it's,
Yeah, you're
I want
breaking up on us a little bit, Abby.
She froze up. She
to
froze.
say age of the like people, things like that. Are your
Yep,
Abby
you're
froze.
frozen up on us, Abby.
Oh, there you
sorry?
go.
Now you're back. Now you're back.
Took a little cat nap, I see.
Yeah, apparently. Apparently.
Yeah, no
I
dozing
don't-
off for sounds reasonable now. That's what our audience does.
It's just amazing she could do that with her eyes open.
Yes.
That's
Exactly.
pretty
That's-
cool.
Yeah, long-term effects. I'm just like, do they live normal length lives and
Yes,
things like
yeah,
that?
yeah. By every standard, they are perfectly normal people. So, so yeah, there does not appear to be any difficulty at all.
Hmm.
And you know, as long as they have memory consolidation, you know, then you know, they're obviously normal. You know, so.
Did they get into analyzing the sleep stages? Are they in those? Obviously, they have to cycle through those a lot quicker.
Right. Yeah, they didn't describe that, but it's obvious that at least one of those genes would directly affect it.
Right,
rapid eye movement. So yeah, I'm sure they probably have been analyzed for that. You know, there's from time to time I've been tempted to go to the sleep lab and just see how deep a sleep I fall into. But anyway, I haven't, and I guess I'm functioning reasonably normally. So that's by my own criteria.
I know on my regular doctor's appointments, my doctor is mostly interested in how I sleep, how much I'm sleeping, how good I'm sleeping,
Sure. Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously extremely important, and so it's kind of surprising that you know, that there aren't. And I didn't do an extensive literature search here. But I found these 3 papers rather quickly describing these 3 genes. So I know more is going to be coming out on this, but as important as sleep is, it's kind of surprising that you know, these first genes weren't identified till well into the 2000s. You know, so anyway. I think we'll just leave it there, and we'll be right back with more Sounds Reasonable after this short break.
He's a sweet thing.
all alive. The devil's in the detail, lingered inside. Oh, a holy crime. But how can I hide you without an alibi? It's a lover's fight without an alibi. You took my innocence. I can't wait no longer. I'm playing with the monsters. Everything that brought me alive. Going around like nonsense, playing with the monsters. They brought me alive, but got no alibi. It's a lover's fight without an alibi. You took my innocence without an alibi.
And we're back with more Sounds Reasonable. Rudy Giuliani, Trump's lawyer, faces disbarment for lying about the 2020 election. Now, anyone who cares about the facts concerning the 2020 election outcome knows that Biden won the election by millions of votes. Unfortunately, there are those Republicans, starting with Trump, that have refused to accept the election outcome, even as we rapidly approach a full year since the results were tallied. If you're an attorney, your first duty is to tell the truth, especially when in court. If you are found to be lying, you can have your license to practice law revoked. Abby has the story concerning Giuliani and this very issue. So Abby, tell us what you have. You're muted.
Muted.
There
Yes,
we go.
got it. Sorry. Okay, so this article, like Brad said, is about Giuliani. No, man, this is gonna be a rough. Woo! From the New York Times, and so it came out basically that the court suspended Giuliani's law license because of basically false allegations that Giuliani made. Wow. Yes.
It's okay.
I have not been very,
Juliana.
I said I was tired. That's what anyway, so he's temporarily barred from practicing law in New York. And I'm going to, this is a pretty long article, and it was published on June 24th, 2021, by Nicole Hong, William K. Rashbaum, and Ben Protis. But because it's so long, I'm going to paraphrase some of it. But basically what has happened is, since Giuliani made false and misleading statements about the results of the 2020 election on behalf of Mr. Trump, New York State is saying that because of these actions and because it had inflamed what had happened on January 6th, they are temporarily barring him from practicing law. And I guess this is pretty unprecedented because they don't typically do this, even if lawyers make false allegations or mislead people, which apparently, seems like that's what lawyers do most of the time, if they're good at their job. So now they're saying like, that's kind of weird, but because of the Capitol riot on January 6th, they're saying that, what he's doing is causing a lot of harm. And so he should be barred at least temporarily, but they said it could have more long-term consequences. Basically what he said was that there was voter fraud and dead people were voting and the voting machines were rigged and all the kind of crap that we've heard before about the election. And just because of how serious the allegations were and what's been caused by it, and this is their decision. Now, this is only for New York, so I don't think, as far as you have to have a law license in whatever state or territory that you practice, but he also has one in Washington, D.C. And so at this point in time, he could still practice law there, but just not in New York, at least for right now. Other things that I guess were strange or weird about this situation was that he really hasn't been practicing law for very well. Okay, so he's been practicing law. He's been a lawyer for like 50 years, but until he became Trump's lawyer, he wasn't really doing a lot of lawyering. Before that, he was a prosecutor for New York, and he had a really good reputation. He was known to fight corruption and be tough on crime type of thing. And then he got a lot of praise for being the mayor during 9/11, but he kind of went off the rails, in my opinion. So after he stopped he wasn't the mayor and he stopped practicing as a prosecutor, he was like doing radio shows and commercials, and he was running a security consulting business. And I think he maybe like lost his mind a little bit. And now, you know, obviously everything he's, well, not everybody, but I think most normal, thoughtful people think he's pretty nuts for the things he's saying. So he started, you know, practicing law again to be Trump's lawyer, and who, you know, the whole Ukraine and Joe Biden and his son, you know, and they're trying to dig up dirt on what happened in Ukraine, and he's damaging reputations in general. Like that's kind of what he's been doing under Trump. And then of course, you know, instigating the riot on January 6th and the bombardment of the Capitol building. So he really instigated a lot of that as well. And he's also like pressed Trump. So I don't know. I mean, this is my personal opinion, but I'm not sure if Trump would have went as far as he did with trying to fight the election if it wasn't for Giuliani, because he really like pushed Trump to say like there's election fraud. And I think he almost kind of like convinced Trump that like there was evidence there, but then he actually never provided any evidence. So he said all of these things, but never provided any evidence in court. And then of course, people started suing them because they're saying all these things and they didn't have any evidence for it. So in general, yes, I mean, I think that this is probably long overdue that he is being kicked out of the courtroom. But you know, we'll see. I don't know, from the way the world is right now, I don't have a lot of hope that this is going to be long lasting. And I think they do have a decent following. I mean, both Trump and Giuliani have like brainwashed people into believing some pretty ridiculous things with zero evidence. So I don't know what's going to come about this. And I think that we'll probably see some conspiracy theories in the near future about how people, maybe the liberals, are trying to shut down Giuliani and shut down the truth, or, you know, whatever they say. That's all bullshit. But I don't know. Those are my thoughts. And I don't know. Again, I didn't read the article word for word, but just kind of paraphrased it so everybody could get the main ideas. And hopefully I did a decent job doing that.
Yeah. So, you know, what strikes me is what you said early in the article, and that was that before Giuliani got involved with Trump, he was a good guy, and that, you know, we've seen that story over and over here. You know, that Trump has just ruined so many people.
So many people.
And yet you still have people just flocking to the guy, you know, trying to cuddle up to him with full knowledge that they may be next. And I that's what I just can't understand that. I mean, how can you be that stupid to get involved? You know, unless you're just that desperate for power, I suppose, you know, trying to cuddle up to power. So I don't know. But yeah, what do you guys think? You're muted, Tim.
Do that now. Yes, I agree that, yeah, I think Giuliani, you know, had done some really good things and was probably pretty well respected and well liked as a lawyer, or I'm sorry, as a mayor of New York City, and has just gone off the deep end. And I mean, I still think of that classic, one of the not interviews, but press conferences are given where the dye from his hair dye started running down his face. I mean, that's just how wacko.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing just then.
Yeah, he's drank the Kool-Aid, and it's clouded his mind and judgment, I think. But he's not the only one. You're right, Brad.
Got a little vain.
Exactly, he's not the only one.
And then as soon as you do something that Trump doesn't like, he's throwing you under the bus and, you know, talking crap about you, and, you know, so
Yeah, I don't understand. And I want to agree with you guys and Brad that, I think some things, it seems like there's some missing pieces here, because why would someone that was well respected and seemed like he, had a good head on his shoulders, had a good understanding of reality, get to this point like that? It just seems such a, and is it Trump? And then how does, if it is the collaboration with Trump, how, why, what is Trump doing?
It's all part of the cult
Or-
personality.
It almost
Yeah.
is like there's some type of, it's got some type of hole. So is it through business dealings or those types of things? Somehow, it almost seems like he's got some blackmail on you, that he's gonna do what I want. I don't know.
I don't know, but don't you think that it's weird? Like, it just seems so strange why, like, average people are thinking like, how could you do that? And then, but then I think average people are also falling for it too. So I don't know.
He acts like, Trump acts like a moron, and I guess that, it's like the Pied Piper calling all the rats. Pied Piper's calling all the morons following him.
Yeah, I asked somebody about that the other day. He was, a Trump supporter, and they were saying
It's a regular guy.
he's not afraid to
Tell it like it is.
tell it. Yeah, things like that.
He's one of us. He's one of us.
And I'm like, but
not
it's
a politician.
but it's all bullshit. Like, and it's obviously bullshit. Like,
It is bullshit.
doesn't that bother you that he just lies about shit that's like
Everything.
obviously a lie? Like, it's not even like a, good lie. It's just like completely false information.
That one
The
point
sky
they were
is purple. The sky is brown.
Yeah, they're tracking his lies and half truths, and he's like 40, 50,000, whatever it was.
Yeah, and I don't understand. People are like, oh, no big deal. Yeah, that's a big deal. Like, I don't know, lying bothers me. I don't know about everybody else, but that bothers me. Like,
Yeah. Just absolutely crazy the way people still try to defend this guy.
yeah.
It's just amazing. If you want a good read, actually, Mary Trump's book, Too Much and Never Enough.
I want to read that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is good. I read it a couple months ago. It really does give you some pretty good insight as to how the Trump family became what it is, and describes the difference between Trump's older brother and himself, and so anyway, I would highly recommend that read, both to you guys and our audience. So, all right, looks like discussion has died down, so we'll take our next break. Be back with more Sounds Reasonable.
Messing with my head again. You had your heart set on me, but these feels, they come and go, and they come so easily. Tell me what it is about you that I can't forget, but you're breaking down my walls again, just to set me free. Why do I, baby, why do I love the way you are, always leave me? Why do I, baby, why do I love the touch but never love the feeling? Why do I, baby, why do I love the way you are, always leave me? Why do I, baby, why do I love the touch but never love the feeling?
And we're back with more Sounds Reasonable on Sunday, July 11th, 2021. The events of January 6, 2021 are still fresh in our minds. The riots at the Capitol building with the goal of overthrowing the election results and reinstating Trump as president are still haunting reminders of the number of militias that are out there. One lawman has a dire prediction concerning this issue, and Tracy has the story. So Tracy, what is this person trying to warn us about?
All right, this story was found on the Daily Beast, authored by Heath Drusen, entitled, "This Militia Fighting GOP Sheriff Thinks January 6th was just the start." Spokane, Washington. Ozzie Nezovich seems to revel in pissing people off. The fact that the extreme left and extreme right hate my guts, I'm good with that, he told the Daily Beast, because I don't much like them either. As sheriff of Spokane County in eastern Washington for the past 15 years, Nezovich certainly knows about extremism. He oversees law enforcement in the heart of militia country, just a short drive over the Idaho border from what used to be the headquarters for the neo-Nazi group, the Aryan Nations. As the GOP continues its lurch off the deep end, with even some elected officials participating in the January 6th Capitol riot, the state party leaders making common cause with militias, Nezovich, a Republican, is an outspoken voice against far-right extremism. But he's no friend to their enemies either. Nezovich is a tall and soft-spoken, but blunt. He's got a bit of a country twang and betrays his small-town Wyoming upbringing and lends an understated tone to wild stories of armed groups, death threats, and violence. He's put skinheads in prison, called for a militia-friendly state legislator to be arrested for domestic terrorism, and been attacked on air by conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. He walked in a Martin Luther King Jr. Day parade that a white supremacist tried to bomb. Nezovich thinks America will be grappling with extremism for many years to come. But despite his stand against anti-government groups, he also has drawn the ire of social justice advocates and praise from some Republicans for his habit of lumping in left-wing protesters with dangerous far-right extremists. I think that Ozzie is one of the few that I've seen that are willing to call out bad behavior on both the left and the right, said Jennifer Ellis, a Republican activist who co-founded the anti-extremist group Idaho Conservatives. And anyone who says he's not a true conservative Republican doesn't know what they're talking about. So this guy is kind of on both sides, sort of. Not really on both sides, but
monitoring both sides. Let's put it that way.
right. He's monitoring both sides, and if he sees something bad on either side, you know, he jumps in against that. Okay, but plenty on the far right do say exactly that, and a lot of the moderating forces within the GOP, Nezovich might be on his way out. In 2019, he announced that he would not run in 2022, though he left the door open to another run in his conversation with the Daily Beast. If this is it for him, he'll be leaving with a long list of enemies. That's because in a region where legislators have been accused of plotting an armed standoff with federal agents, where the John Birch Society has deep connections to the GOP, and so-called constitutional sheriffs like Snohomish County Sheriff Adam Fortney rebel against pandemic orders, Nezovich has rejected all of them, and he thinks there's plenty to be worried about. even after the federal crackdown on rioters and some of the extremist groups who organized on January 6th. Knezovich's office is in Spokane, a city of about 220,000 people, dotted with turn-of-the-century brick buildings. But he and his deputies enforced the law in the surrounding rural areas, including swaths of rugged forested mountains that are part of the so-called American Redoubt, where adherents to far-right ideologies and militia members move to get off the grid and away from the government. So do you guys think this guy is going to be more popular for this or less popular for this, or?
Well, the middle of any political situation should have the most people, and then your extreme should be on either side. So, if he's doing a good job of monitoring these extremist groups, then you'd like to think he'd be popular.
I mean, he's trying to do the right thing.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
He's,
I definitely agree with that.
he's being a normal sheriff. What
Fair.
normality
He's trying to
should
be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he understands that there's, as far as right now, I think the right-wing extremists are far more outnumbering the ultra left, and he knows that. I think he's following the Constitution. He's being what a normal sheriff should be, or acting how a normal sheriff should act.
Right.
And that seems, but now this time period, that seems odd.
I know, right? He's trying to be impartial, and that is rare right now. Politicians and people like sheriffs and other politicians, they should be impartial. They should be doing what the law says they're supposed to be doing, not what their personal beliefs
Right. What they're elected to do, doing what they're elected to do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And so
I agree. I think that it is hard to find people that will call out extremism on both sides, but I don't know. I mean, I think it almost seems too good to be true.
yeah, I mean, it's I mean, I would support this guy, and I think that people like us probably would support this guy. I don't know. For example, Knezovich pushes back on criticism that police across the country unfairly target communities of color. I look at Black Lives Matter in two realms. Black Lives Matter .humanity, I'm there with you all day long. blacklivesmatter.org, That kind of talk upsets plenty of people on the left. A question about his legacy often elicits a long pause, and there's almost always a but in any conversation about him. For Kate Bitts, a program manager at the left-leaning anti-extremism watchdog Western States Center, Knezovich has a frustrating mixed record. Knezovich has really intimate knowledge of just how ugly things can get for local elected officials and law enforcement when anti-democratic groups begin to build real local power, she told the Daily Beast. He is a lot more vocal about this issue than many other local elected officials and law enforcement leaders, which is great. But then comes the inevitable but. That said, his analysis of our local situation in Eastern Washington, and this is a quote, is very much wedded to this kind of both sides conception of politics. bit said. So we've also seen him habitually describe groups that organize for racial justice as being supposedly equally dangerous to law enforcement as the far right. Indeed, far right violence has caused for more deaths in the US than left-wing violence, according to one recent Washington Post analysis. Curtis Robinson worked closely with Nesevich on issues of race relations as Spokane chapter NAACP president until last year. He praised the sheriff for his handling of an allegation that one of his white deputies was using racial slurs, and said Nesevich offered a sympathetic ear to the concerns of the Black community. And then other times I've just been like, who is this person that I'm listening to talking right now? Robinson said. So what do you guys think? Any other?
Well, I mean, the goal.
Sounds like he's trying to do his job.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the goal has to be to, to defend constitutional rights and defend your community from those that want to, for lack of a better term, I guess, try to deny your constitutional rights. So yeah, I mean, that's what has to be done. And to me, it's just hard to fathom why this guy would not have more support.
Right. Robinson further said that, and that's the problem, that creates a kind of mixed bag of feelings for people of color. So I don't know, he's criticized by both sides, and hopefully there's something in the middle that supports him. So what were you saying, Abby? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just gonna say that your article, it talks about how he's like in favor of militarization of police forces and jail expansion. So I think there is pretty broad support against that. At least, I mean, from the liberal side of things, because it doesn't work. But I would say that as far as his comments about like the Black Lives Matter group, a lot of people have said that. A lot of people that have been a part of the Black Lives Matter movement are not happy with the way some people have taken that, or the direction some people have taken that. So, I think it's a fair criticism. And I think it's just a really refreshing thing to see, because with the way things are right now, people are so like black and white about things, and I always have to be like, that's not everything, that there's always that in between, and it's nice to see someone that's willing to look at both sides, because I don't think we see that a lot anymore.
Right.
Good point, Abby. Yeah, good point. All right. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. We can wrap that up.
Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and take our final break here before our crazy story of the week.
I'm feeling so hollow, don't you know? Don't you know? I'm living in shadow, don't you know? Don't you know? I fell for fool's gold, I fell for fool's gold. What did I know? What did I know? I fell for fool's gold, I fell for fool's gold. What did I know? What did I know? You were fool's gold. Oh my God. Yes, I did.
we're back with our crazy story of the week. Bill Gates seems to be the target of many conspiracy theories. The most thoroughly discussed one recently was the placement in the COVID vaccine of microchips that would be used to trace the whereabouts of anyone who took the vaccine. So I don't know. I feel like I've been watched lately. Just kidding. But now, if that were not crazy enough, Bill Gates is plotting to take away your meat, or at least
we gotta have our meat. I gotta have my meat. I don't know about you guys.
yeah, I'd be very upset actually.
Yes. I'll lose my meat.
Or at least so says
Oh, you guys
radical.
are talking about food.
Oh, food. Yes, food.
Food.
Yes, yes. Or at least so says a radical right-wing commentator, Josh Bernstein. Tim has our crazy story of the week. So Tim, just how and why is Mr. Gates going to take away our meat?
Oh, that's right, Dr. Brad. That billionaire MFer Bill Gates is at it again. To quote the catchphrase of an old Wendy's commercial, "Where's the beef?" Now, some far-right Republicans are saying, "What's Bill Gates doing with our beef?" So today's crazy story is from The Friendly Atheist, written by Ben Stoneburner. It was posted on June 29th and is titled "Mega Cultist colon Bill Gates is taking your meat so you can't fight the government." The radical right-wing commentator Josh Bernstein has, in the past several months, called for the execution of a congressman and bragged about how he wants to make it harder for people to vote. That's enough right there to let you know that maybe his elevator doesn't go quite all the way to the top floor. Bernstein also likes to spread conspiracy theories, and his latest one involves Bill Gates. Bernstein says that Bill Gates is investing in farmland as part of a demonic plan to take away your meat, thereby keeping you weak and unable to, quote, to overcome the tyrannical governments. Okay, so I want everyone to hear this straight from Crazy Horse's mouth. So let's go to a video clip that has Josh giving out his warning about Gates. So let me share that with us. Sharing. Okay, this is from a Twitter. Listen in here.
He could be buying up all this farmland to end livestock production and to get everybody from not being able to eat meat. Because if you don't have any cows, you don't have any livestock, and you don't have any land to cultivate and to grow and to have these cows on, well, guess what? You're going to have less and less and less meat. People need to understand, they want you to stop eating meat. Now, when you think about that, what do you think about when people tell you stop eating meat? Now, the left is going to say, well, it's for the environment, right? Cow farts and all this other crazy stuff. It's not. It's to make you weak, okay? If you look at Cuba, a communist country, it's almost impossible to get meat. And the people are always trying to get it, and they can never get it. Look at other countries. Like, for instance, when Ceausescu was in power in Romania, what did he do? One of the first things he did was he took away the meat from the people. Why? To keep them weak, okay? To have them be brittle and not be strong enough to overcome their tyrannical governments. So this is what they want. They want you to eat fake meat, 3D printed meat, drink sewer water, and eat weeds and chomp on bugs, okay? These people are sick and they're demonic.
Yes.
They're demonic.
They're demonic.
Well, I don't know about you, but I really draw the line at drinking sewer water.
Yeah, sewer water. Yeah, I'll eat a bug
I
any
just
day.
draw the line right there. That's as far as I will go.
Yeah, I'll eat bugs any day, but I'm not drinking any damn sewer water. I'll buy one of those Jimmy Carter straws so I can filter it. So,
Can't you just drop a little pill in it or some sort of effervescent thing and makes the sewer water okay again?
yeah.
Takes
So-
the poop out of it.
Now, I don't know. It wasn't very loud, so hopefully you could hear everything all right. But did you notice in the clip that Bernstein said that Cuba can't get meat?
Yes.
I don't know if that's true, but if it is, I think I know who's contributed to the shortage, and it's not their government. It probably has a little bit more to do with the United States.
The
Now,
sanctions.
yeah, now the facts are that the meat industry is one of the leading causes of emissions into the atmosphere. There is a lot of data that backs that up, but Bernstein isn't interested in facts. He's all in on his lie. He's all in on his lie. He's also wrong. People who don't eat meat aren't necessarily weak, just less weak. Just as people who eat meat aren't always stronger. And in case you're wondering, and I know you might find this hard to believe, but Bernstein has no evidence connecting Gates to any of this, specifically to his theory. But of course, his followers won't really care about that. So that's my short and crazy story of the week. What do you guys think? That you ready to stop eating meat?
Okay, just FYI, I have a couple of things. First of all, I just Googled about Cuba eating and meat.
Okay.
And from Reuters, they said they're actually in 1963, the government made it illegal for Cubans to slaughter their cows or sell beef and byproducts without state permission. After Hurricane Flora killed 20% of the country's herd. So I think there was probably some government intervention for them, I guess, like slaughtering their own cattle. But I mean,
build the herds back up, it sounds like.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, if you've ever been in the Caribbean for very long, you find that they don't eat beef. You've got
yeah, they don't eat a lot of
tons
beef
of
anyway.
meat.
Mhm.
Fish is a meat. We're still eating muscle. Tons
Yeah,
of fish,
exactly.
chickens, goats.
Yeah.
You don't see. I mean, at least my experience being in the island of Dominica many times, there are beef, but not much. You can get beef and you can get some pork, but it's chickens and fish.
Yeah.
And
No,
goats.
they're not. I mean, they just don't have really the land area to be able to grow cattle like we do in the Midwest. So I mean, but I mean, I guess my point was that they take something as simple as that and they just twist it and turn it into the government isn't allowing them to have meat. You know, that's what the government did to them. And that's not true. I mean, there was maybe some government regulation, but we have government regulation in the United States.
Right.
And then just about Bill Gates in general and the land thing, people around here, like my aunt and uncle farm still in central Nebraska, and they totally buy all of that. Like they think that it's so true. Bill Gates is buying up land, and I'm not sure if they would say like go as far to say that he's buying it for like to get less cows or whatever. Like, you know, I don't know if that's as far as they're going with it, but they definitely think that there is some like negative, like demonic thing that Bill Gates. Yeah, that Bill Gates is doing by buying up all the land, and maybe because like I think a lot of it is they think that he's buying all the land so like normal people won't have access to it.
But is he buying land? I never did check.
Yeah, he is buying quite a bit of land, and his I think like a lot of the land that he was buying is conservation, like that's kind of what he was going for there. But he has the money, and land prices are really high around here. So I think people are looking at it as a negative thing because they're saying, oh, well, he's buying all the land and then we're not going to be able to grow crops. But
Well,
I don't think that's true.
And then remember, years ago, Ted Turner.
Right,
buying
that's what I was gonna
You
say.
mentioned that, yeah. Tons of land
Yeah.
out in western Nebraska. And they were
Yeah,
all up in arms.
I mean, Ted Turner simply wanted to turn underused agricultural land back to tall grass prairie.
Right.
That was what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it isn't Ted Turner, it's Bill Gates.
And it'd be interesting to see if even within the United States, if you compare, obviously in our Midwestern region here, Nebraska, Iowa, and so on, heavy beef, right? But I think if you get in other regions of the country, you're going to see maybe not as heavy as a beef, again, with other meats where you get animal protein from other sources than just beef.
Good for your hair, skin, and nails, I heard.
What's that? Beef? I thought you just put that. If you had like a black eye, you put that in your eye, a big slab of meat.
Mhm. Hot beef injection.
That was all like on the Popeye, whatever cartoons I used to watch. They did. Little Rascals or whatever.
Okay, just FYI, Lincoln Journal Star article about Bill and Melinda Gates, and as far as the Nebraska owned. So Bill Gates is now like he owns the most farmland in the United States. He owns 20,000 acres in Nebraska, and he rents it to local farmers. So yeah, he rents it out to local farmers so they can
farm it.
They can grow corn and soybeans on it, which honestly, it sounds like a pretty good business plan to me. I mean, we are capitalists, right? I don't know how they can say that's a good thing and then yell at the guy that does it. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's a crazy world, and that was a crazy story.
Yes, indeed.
And thanks so much, everyone. I forgot to thank you as you did your stories today. My apologies for that. So thanks to everyone
Damn it, Dr. Brad.
for some great input today. And so that will wrap us up for this week. If you have enjoyed our program, please pass the word to your friends and associates, believers and non-believers alike. Again, just a reminder that you are welcome to post questions and comments on our Facebook page. Remember, there's an enormous difference between having good reasons for what one accepts to be true and having bad ones. Incidentally, this is the only distinction one needs to become a strict atheist. This has been Dr. Brad for Tim, Tracy, and Abby saying so long.
All right.